Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hi, everybody. Ann Harder with you. You know, this time of the year, a lot of folks, including myself, are looking for a really good holiday read, something to read that reminds you of Christmas. And this year, the state of Texas is even endorsing a book. It's a collection of short stories called A Hill Country Christmas, Hope for Hardscrabble Times. And joining me is Lynn Dean from her wonderful home in San Antonio via the magic of Zoom. Welcome, Lynn. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
You are a former Wacoan, and we've had you at my book club, and it's good to see you again. I see you're still prolifically writing. You've got at least 17 published things to your name. Quite a few.
Count.
Yeah, she lost. Anyway, kind of lost count on that. But this latest one, I want you to hold it up for the camera so folks can see. It's called, in the beautiful cover, A Hill Country Christmas, Hope for Hardscrabble Times. And I'm just curious, Lynn, about how you kind of get into this whole genre of historical fiction, I guess you call it, because they're real people, but you sort of put flesh and bone on them and bring them to life through your own imagination, correct?
Yes. I was one of those strange kids that was excited in school when they assigned research papers. I have always enjoyed digging and learning and finding odd little facts here and there. And yet I did not enjoy history in school very much.
Really?
And I wanted my children to love it, and especially Texas history. We homeschooled, and when it was time to pick a history curriculum, I asked around, and they showed me the same textbook that had bored me to tears 30 years before.
Oh, my.
And I thought, no, we're not going there. So I researched and wrote a Texas history curriculum that is been going strong now it's going into its 24th year. It's called Discover Texas, and it's discovery based. It does tell children the story of what happened chronologically, but we also include real library books and projects and field trips, and we try and get them into the mind of the people who made the history so they'll understand why it happened, what it changed, and why that mattered.
So the Texas Historical Commission has kind of stepped in on this new book that you are a part of. I'll say you're a part of because there are a total of, 5 authors?
There are 5 of us.
5 of you, and they're short stories, which I love the format of a short story. I just love that.
Too. I do too.
So let's talk about how all that came about, and the fact that they're available in Texas historic museums now.
They are, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah, that was kind of a recent development, right?
It really was.
Uh-huh.
It really was. This is a book that I published, and the 5 of us were the marketing team as well. So one of the stories was set in Castroville, and I went to the Landmark Inn, which is in Castroville, and asked if they would have any interest in carrying it in their museum. And she said, I would love to, but you'll need to go through our state approval process.
Sure, yeah.
And she kindly gave me the name of the people to contact, and I did, and it happened really quickly, and it is now not only at the Landmark Inn, but it's at San Felipe de Austin Museum. It's at the Star of the Republic Museum at Washington on the Brazos, and it's at the San Jacinto Battlefield Museum. So that's their big 3. I'm floored, humbled, thrilled, ecstatic, all those things.
Oh, wow. It is a feather in your cap, because these are stories that, as I say, do bring to life historical persons. And so let's start with the first one I came upon in your collection. It's called A Candle in the Window. And it's set in your hometown, San Antonio now, but back in 1835. So tell me why did you select, first of all, these characters?
Well, it was really important to us to bring out the cultural tapestry of the Hill Country. And I can't think of any family that more typified the blending of cultures than Deaf Smith's family. Deaf Smith was Anglo and a little older and hearing impaired. And he came here because he had a lung disease. We're not sure exactly what that was, but emphysema or tuberculosis, one probably. When he came here, he met and fell in love with a Hispanic widow who had 3 daughters. So he married her and adopted her daughters, and then they had more children of their own. He was also a surveyor, and a young man approached him when he was in San Felipe and asked him if he would please apprentice him, and that was Hendrik Arnold. Hendrik Arnold was a free Black man. His parents had come here from Mississippi because in that state, they were not allowed to marry. His father was white, but his mother was Black. And so they came here so that their sons could be free and always be free. And he had a daughter from a prior relationship who was also African American, but it's just this wonderful blended family of disabled people and abled people and Tejanas and free Blacks and enslaved Blacks and Anglos, and it was a Texas family.
Yeah, wow. And there's a lot going on here. Yeah, and you mentioned enslaved people. It was Henrik's daughter was considered his possession, his slave, right?
Yes, and I have not figured that out.
I know.
Parents were very open. I mean, they came here to be married so their sons could be free, but they had one slave, a house servant, and Hendrik fell in love with her, and they had a daughter, Harriet. And so Harriet technically was his daughter, but also he owned her. And for whatever his reasons, he contracted to have her apprenticed and freed on her 18th birthday. But my conjecture is that he may have been trying to protect her by making sure that any way that they looked at it, she was his to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a lot of love and protection, but she also was not free to do what her half-sisters could.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Mike.
And we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, this is Sarah.
And I'm Carter.
And this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and vinyl. So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
It's fascinating. And when you think it
Very complex.
wasn't that long ago, I mean, in the total context of history, I mean, that's what's kind of amazing about how far we've come. And of course, he was an important figure in Texas history, and that he served as a spy, correct?
He did. His home was on the road that led from San Antonio to Gonzales to San Felipe.
Mm.
So he literally was at the crossroads of history. And his wife still had title to the home she had lived in San Antonio, I believe, with her husband. And so in my story, I knew that Def and his wife and their younger children had moved out to his land. And so in my story, I conjectured that perhaps they had given the townhouse to the oldest daughter and Maria and her husband, Henrik.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that was not something you researched and found titles and all that kind of thing. It's where your imagination sort of came into play.
I didn't find the titles. I did find that he had lived here and was living here at the time of the siege of Bear, because they had to get their kids out. So when I looked at where the siege encampments were and the older neighborhoods around there, it indicated that it might have been that house, because he had them smuggled out in the dark of night so that they would be further away from the battle.
So a lot of drama.
A lot of drama.
A lot of drama.
For the purpose of the story, we looked
Sure.
at it from the human perspective
Yeah.
of, you've been under siege, and now your father and your husband are in danger. You've just had your first child. You don't know what's going to happen, and you're trying to make one last happy Christmas for the kids
Right.
before you have to run.
And of course, from Maria's standpoint, she was Mexican. So, this was
She was.
her country. It's people that were doing all this. And
Yes,
it's
very awkward position for her.
it's a fascinating story, a delightful read, and it just kind of transport you to that period of history and just these important characters. If we could go forward some years to 1918, you write a story called "The Man Who Canceled Christmas," and that's set in Kendall County, in one of my favorite places on the planet, and that's Bernie. I love Bernie.
I love Bernie. It's a charming town. It's wonderful.
But back in 1918, they were dealing with a little thing called the Spanish flu, right?
They were, and we were, of course, in World War I, and Bernie had one town doctor, and he was in France.
Mm.
He volunteered to go with the troops. So the sheriff at the time was a man in a German town with an English name. His wife was German, but he was not, Joe Saunders. And from all accounts, he was well-liked and a good guy. But 3 really unfortunate things happened while he was sheriff. they started the first national income tax, and it skyrocketed from 7% a year to 70%.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Income tax brackets. And then there was a prohibition against alcohol that came out, which did not go over well at all in the German community.
No, not with those Germans who like their beer, no.
No, because the San Antonio soldiers would come out and they would drink too much and cause trouble. So that was an unpopular decision, and he was called on to enforce it.
Well, he was the law. He had to.
He was the law. And then when the soldiers began to come back from World War I, they sent the most injured and sick first so that they could get home to their families and receive the care they needed. And a lot of them coming home had Spanish influenza.
Oh.
And he was scared. It was like, if this gets out of hand over Christmas with everybody mixing and mingling, we have no doctor. So he canceled Christmas.
So that meant no church services?
No church services, no parties, no concerts, no nothing.
Yeah, that sort of remind you of something that happened in the last couple of years.
Doesn't it?
So you wrote this post-COVID? This isn't an old. Yeah,
Yes,
this is
this
not an
all
old story
happened
you
within the
had in
last
your file. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it. Of course, we all went through that. What do you mean we can't? Of course, they didn't have the luxury of Zoom and all the technology that we were able to still stay somewhat connected. That had to have been. It had to have been a difficult thing for people to kind of be under lockdown.
Very much. And Bernie did have some rather serious cases of Spanish flu that I don't think anyone died of it in Bernie, but they had several people that caught it from people they had known. And it was nip and tuck for a while, and that's when he made his decision.
So he did it. He canceled Christmas, and they canceled him. He lost re-election. Yeah, booted him out.
You're gone, dude.
But you know what? So how did you come upon this guy? How did you know about this story to write this?
That's actually an interesting story. Bernie is close to the river, and the river flooded in about 1940, and it destroyed all of their newspaper archives.
Oh, my.
So there was nothing that I could research. I heard about it through people who did genealogy and local history, but there was nothing to research.
My.
And somebody said, go on down the road to Comfort. They have a good library, and they have all of their newspapers on file. Mm-hmm. And in the Comfort paper, every week there was a column called Our Neighbors. And so you could read the Bernie news in the Comfort paper. And that's where I found him. I was actually looking for something else and found all the, it was wonderful because it had so much about the people's feelings about it. And Comfort did not cancel their Christmas, but Bernie did. So a lot of the people in Bernie drove out to Comfort
to go to church. Yeah. Yeah,
they did.
Yeah, and Comfort's another one of my favorite places to go just for a bed and breakfast and just a lovely weekend. The Hill Country, of course, that's just my favorite part of the state of Texas. I guess maybe it's my German roots, because the Germans they love that part. I think it reminded them a little bit of the Old Country, maybe. Just that, yeah, the climate and all that, So. A wonderful place to visit for sure. Another one of your stories is Christmas Chivalry. Now, this is in Candalia. Now, where is Candalia?
Candalia is a very small community. I would jokingly tell you it's between Bergheim and Sisterdale, but people don't much know where those are either. Sisterdale is between Bernie and Fredericksburg. Okay. And then if you come straight east toward New Braunfels, you would eventually run through Candalia.
Okay, so it's all right down in there.
In there mm-hmm. in a little.
Yeah, and our characters here are Henrietta and Effie. Now you say they're not actual historic.
They are
characters.
Not.
So
the events are historical, but the characters in it are either drawn from other residents or just pulled out of my head.
Okay, so tell everybody tell them about this story here. It's about a party.
It is. It's about a party. Candelia has still a large dance hall. And in all of the German communities, the dance hall was the center of the community's social life, the church and the dance hall. And so in my story, these two sisters are involved in a friend's wedding. And after the church wedding, everybody'd head over to the dance hall, and the father of the bride would provide some sort of supper. In this case, he's serving cabrito, and they would all have a big chivalry, which at the time they would just stay and party all night with the couple, and then send them on their way as the sun rose the next morning.
So were any of the characters, you say that just this process is what is historical, or are there other characters who really are in Texas history?
The process was historical, and what I was trying to capture in that one was the lighthearted feeling when they did not realize the Great War was coming.
Oh.
The one sister, Effie, is pretty Twitter-pated, and there was a large airport, not airport, an airfield pilot training center in San Antonio. It was among the first. And the two of the teachers there were women, which I thought was also worth note.
Wow.
And Stinson Field. And so their friend is marrying a pilot who came from Chicago, and he is training at Stinson Field. And all the pilots are going to be there, and Effie has her cap set. She's going to catch her one, not realizing, because she wants to get away from the hardship of the farm, not realizing that it's going to get much harder for the pilots than it ever was on the farm for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a real world situations for these characters that you have brought to life in your short story. And as you say, you wrote several for your compilation. And let's talk a little bit about how all that came about. Now, the Texas Historical Commission, really wonderful, a part of helping to market your book in their various museums. Also, you can get it on Amazon, correct?
You can.
Right. So
we had it printed. It's available on Amazon, but we also had it printed by a local printer for our wholesale, retail, and fundraiser copies.
Okay, good. So how did it kind of come about? This, collaborating with these other authors to have this book come out.
Well, 2 years ago, I had not met any of them.
Really?
But I am in an author group that Gail Kittleson, my co-author, is also a member of. She writes predominantly World War II historical fiction, and she was looking to set one of her stories in the Hill Country and kind of put up a cry for help, and I raised my hand, and she settled on Loyal Valley, which is a ghost town now, but it is between Fredericksburg and Mason, which is another really interesting area. But she flew down, and I drove her all around the Hill Country, and we did kind of the nerdy history tour and met lots of locals. And that really is where we started hearing these great stories. And then when she came back to launch her book, when it was finished, there were more people telling us more stories, and we just loved them. And as we drove in the car, we said, we should do something to preserve the stories, these little out of the way places, and people live there and nobody even knows. And a lot of them have wonderful historical records in their town library, but it's not well known beyond. So we cooked up the idea of doing a Hill Country Christmas, and Gail suggested the subtitle, Hope for Hardscrabble Time. She said, it's always been kind of on the rough edge out here. I said, it really has.
Oh, sure.
So we looked for stories from Christmases that were difficult, but where the people managed to have a good Christmas anyway. Mm.
And Christmas has sort of been a little niche that you've been a part of, because you have another short story called Nabbing St. Nicholas, a holiday short story, and another book called Chasing Christmas, a holiday novella. So you just love Christmas. It just makes you think of wanting to write.
No, not necessarily. My first books were just stories that I found while researching uh, my history curriculum. But I love stories about people and how they overcome challenges.
Yeah.
If nothing happened and everything was smooth, there would be no story to tell.
That's true.
But Chasing Christmas is special to me because the person overcoming the challenge was not a character in the book. It was my mom. She was very sick that year and spent most of the year in the hospital. And I told her, you hang in there and I'll come when I can. And when I come every month, I will bring you a new chapter to read and look forward to. And then for Christmas that year, she made it. And for Christmas that year, I bound them all together and had it published and gave her the book for Christmas.
What a special gift.
It really was fun.
Yeah. And you tell me the St. Nicholas short story related to a time you spent in Germany?
Yes, we were stationed in Germany for 4 years, and they have such wonderful Christmas traditions. Nicholas comes to the house, but that year we were we were between houses. The house we had been renting sold, and the house that we were going to rent was not ready yet. So we were staying in an off-season place in a kind of little vacation cottage. And the man who was portraying Nicholas that year for the children in town didn't know us and didn't know we were there. So our daughter was waiting anxiously at the window, and she saw him turn around and go the other way.
Oh.
And when my husband came home, she says, you go get him and bring him back. And so we watched, and they did. It's a funny story, but it's really cute. Her daddy saved the day.
Absolutely. Oh, Lynn, it's delightful to get to visit with you again and to hear more about your writing and kind of catch up. You lived in Waco for many years.
I did, from third grade to college.
Yeah.
And through college, and then married military, and then came back for 17 years. And now we've been in San Antonio for about 11 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are in one of my favorite parts of the country. That would be the Texas Hill Country. And so you can enjoy Hill Country Christmas Hope for Hardscrabble times. Again, you can visit any of these wonderful historical places in the state of Texas, and you can find it in the museum shop or go to Amazon, correct?
Yes. It's on Amazon as an ebook or also as a paperback.
Oh, Lynn, it's been a delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being with us today. And I hope you have a wonderful Merry Christmas.
You too.
And a terrific New Year. And we want to thank you all for joining us. And we will see you again next time on Central Texas Life. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.